Welcome to Continuing Conversations, a podcast presented by VCU Continuing and Professional Education. I'm Connor Lobb, and on this show, I'll be interviewing different leaders in the field of continuing education. This episode is part 2 of my interview with Oscar Keys, the Multimedia Teaching and Learning Librarian at VCU Libraries. We'll finish talking about how he became interested in media education, some of the work he does at VCU Libraries, like Wednesdays in the Workshop, and some educational activities he's interested in working with VCU Continuing and Professional Education to digitally badge in the future.
So it sounds like the overarching goal to me is you want to bring this to as many people as possible in the way that works for them the best.
Yeah, that's a really articulate. I'm like, maybe I should write that down. But yeah.
So I work at VCU Continuing and Professional Education. You work at VCU Libraries. We've been in some light talks about digital badging, and my office is doing a lot of work with digital badging right now. And like I said, Keys and us have been talking a little bit about digital badging in collaboration, but I'm curious to hear, how did you hear about digital badging yourself, and what made you become interested in it?
So, I mean, first off, I have to give the shout out to Aurora Higgs, who was my initial connection
The best.
to learning more about sort of what your office did and the resources and opportunities for our students. The second was selfish is the wrong word, but more like, so we employ student staff at the workshop. They actually are responsible for most of our day-to-day operations. They're the ones that handle circulation and checkout. They do some of the orientations. They have a lot of responsibilities, and they have these they usually come in with really defined skill sets, but they definitely leave with an even more robust skill set, and a skill set that's like very hard to get through a program. And that skill set is specifically like creative technology instruction. Like I mentioned earlier in our talk, I do media education. Media education is not a field of study in the US. You have to go to the UK or like South Korea to study media education as a PhD student. Wow. That's one of the reasons I'm in art education, because they handle media arts. And to be fair, art education in the US is incredible, so no qualms there. But media education is not as defined of a field here in the States. And so because there's not that kind of support, the way for our students to be able to sort of say, we know how to teach these tools really well, there's not like a major they could take that would tell them that. And so I was really interested in finding a way for them to have a clear and accredited object that said that they knew these things. And so I pursued a couple of different options, and I actually was just talking to Aurora about this problem, and she was like, my office does that, because Aurora and I are friends. And I was like, oh, yes, you're correct. That would actually meet most of my needs. And so that was when I connected with everybody. And so I think this year the plan is to like kind of get all the paperwork together, kind of meet with students and sort of talk about what they would find manageable as a digital badging thing. So for me, a lot of my curriculum is built collaboratively with students. And so I plan to sort of do this process the same way, but the hope is that they would then have this thing that they can put on their resumes, their CVs, their job applications, that would be a clear badge, of like what they know. And then because it is of interest to people in other departments like art ed, to have some kind of thing that says, I'm actually really good at digital stuff. There's some interest in perhaps opening that up to more people beyond our students. But it would be really designed initially for our students, and it would be designed around the resources and things we have available in the workshop. So you could kind of see it like, I kind of imagine it sort of like Pokemon, right? Where it's very modular. You go and collect the different skills and tool sets and different things.
The different badges.
Right. And when you've caught them all, then you get your like, you've entered the Indigo League Hall of Fame or whatever, right? Um,
Wow, this could be a whole thing.
yeah, so
Okay.
but the main badge would be a creative technology instruction badge. But it would include all these little subsets of things they would need to do to acquire it.
I think that's
Um,
the cool thing about badging is that it is modular and it is accessible.
yeah. So, and like the thing I've just really enjoyed about it is like it's helping me develop a more sophisticated onboarding for our students, because I'm really thinking about like, wow, these are the skills that have really helped our previous students get on the ball faster. um, how can we help them do that? So I'm really excited for the process this year. My boss is really excited for it. My boss's boss is really excited for it.
Ooh.
And yeah, and our students are obviously like, that would be great if you could get that before we graduated. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. All right. No pressure then. Thanks, guys.
It's also like you don't have to commit super duper hard to anything for a long period of time, like a big sum of money. It's like
Right.
you can get in, like it's kind of like even what you were saying with when you're teaching programs to people, you want to get in and out of like Photoshop, right?
Right.
That's I think what you were saying earlier when you're trying to teach a group of people about this program. If you spend forever in Photoshop, everybody just goes on autopilot because it's just like a gray screen with like little, and it's just horrible
Right.
after 30 minutes of it. But not to say that education is anything like that, because it's not, but it's a lot easier to stomach and commit to something that is shorter term, and at the end of it it's like a real credential that's like,
Right.
hey, I really actually know how to do this, and it's on my resume, and this is going to actually help me in the future.
Right.
That's going to feel good,
Right.
as opposed to
And it fits this need of like skills that don't have defined fields yet. I mean, I think that's what I was most interested in personally, was like there was no way for them to point to, besides writing like a bullet point on their resume that's like, I can teach audiovisual technologies. Like this is something a lot more robust that really reflects what their skill set is, and is something that is accredited, like has the institutional weight and backing behind it. And that was just something I was really interested in, to really set our students apart when they're applying for jobs. And also like, like I said, selfishly, I would love for more of them to go into work like I do. Right. Because I know how big of a need there is for folks who can compassionately teach technology, and really see like the humanity of the person on the other side of it, versus like IT support. Sometimes,
oh
like, well, it's the difference between like, let me fix your problem for you versus let me guide you for solving this in the future. Right. And that's more our approach. And it's longer and it's not as efficient, because no shade at IT. IT's got like a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of people coming in and out. But part of what our resources is really building and developing that literacy component, really supporting people and learning how to do this themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it sounds worthwhile, right? Like it's like a good thing to invest in what you do.
I hope so.
I
I
mean, hey,
certainly think it's important.
I mean, you're selling me on this.
Oh, good.
I haven't met you before today, and I'm like, wow, this all sounds awesome. You know what I mean? It sounds great.
Yeah.
I've been to I think I went to the one workshop that you mentioned, designing for disability, because
Oh, yeah.
that was in person, right? That was like
It was on Zoom. Well, so there were two. So there was a like there we did a small series on like accessibility in the workshop, and we talked about like captioning and a couple other things. But the design with disability in mind was a virtual event last semester.
Yeah, I went to the first one. That was about because we were having some captioning woes. I needed to figure some things out and figure out how to make it the best I could for the most people. But yeah, I mean that's just all awesome stuff that you do in the lower level of the library. I mean, I guess not right now, but in general.
Well, we're open. Oh, sorry.
No, you're open.
We're
Sorry.
super open. People come visit us, please.
Yes,
We're
don't listen
here.
to what I said. Go visit the lower level library right now.
The Starbucks is not open, but we are. Sorry, they'll be open on the 15th. I know
Hey, I mean, that's what
everyone's.
everyone's. That's that you're gonna get people flooding in when the
I
Starbucks.
know everyone's like, when is Starbucks open?
You're like, do you want to know about media literacy? And they're like, no, I want a
No.
macchiato, please.
And then
um,
we're always so mean because it's like that's the one thing you can't have downstairs with you. Not downstairs, but you can't
uh,
have your macchiato with you at the computer because
oh,
you know what I
well,
mean?
that's. I
So
mean, the combined what is cost of all the wonderful technology that you have in the workshop is like it's a lot. The workshop
yeah.
is sweet. I mean, brief plug for the workshop. I've
Yeah.
done I've used y'all's recording room for like podcasts and making like bad music with my friends. We did that in there in college
I
and
love that.
it was great. I mean, I used it when I was an undergrad for projects because I didn't have like a crazy powerful computer to do videos or anything like that. And all that stuff they have in the workshop. It's a really and you have like a 3D printer.
Do you want me to give you the like rundown of all the things we have at the workshop? Would that
Yeah,
be an
do it.
appropriate thing?
Yeah.
So there are 5 main areas of the workshop, which is another fancy way of saying we have a bunch of computers that handle everything from, motion, or sorry, just plain graphics. Like if you just wanted to scan stuff and edit Photoshop, we have really robust video editing software computers. We have really robust audio editing computers. We also have uh, things that can handle like web development, VR, AR, 3D modeling stuff.
Wow.
We also have something that's related to, it's called ArcGIS, which is basically all the a fancy way of doing data visualizations and a lot of map software. And then, so that's like on the main floor, we have the equipment checkout, which is, I think, our most popular part, which is where you can,
Mm-hmm.
with your VCU ID, you can
Mm-hmm.
check out anything that's on the shelf. If it's there, first come, first serve. We've got cameras, we've got microphones, we've got a telescope, we've got lights, we've got a green screen, all kinds of stuff there. We have the studios, which is what I'm like most in charge of, and they'll both be online in the fall, which I'm really excited about. But we have the audio recording studio, which is where you made all your bad music with your friends. There's also the video studio, which is where I make all my bad streams with my friends. There's also a gaming studio where you can play games with friends. And then we have the maker space, which has 3D printing, laser cutting, a digital embroidery machine, all that really fun stuff. Sewing machines. We have a serger now. And all the materials are there. It's all free. And then we also have, if all else goes down, we also have like the microelectronics, which includes that Raspberry Pi we talked about,
You have a Raspberry
Arduinos.
Pi?
We do have a Raspberry Pi.
Whoa. Okay.
So you can play with that in shop, and I can struggle tinker through it with you if that's of interest. But yeah, we
Sounds
have all
great.
kinds of stuff, and really talented student staff that can help you. They can't make stuff for you, but they can make a mess with you. That's the whole thing. So
That talk about something you need to write down and have laser cut and placed at the front of the workshop. That's a beautiful quote right there. I like that a lot.
thanks.
Okay, so there's one thing I did actually want to return to just because it
Yep.
caught my ear. Pedagogy of Care. You've mentioned it twice, sort of
Yeah.
talk. So I don't even know what that is. And I think you maybe got
Yeah.
into it a little bit, but
So
elaborate on
it's
that for
a
us.
it's from Nell Noddings, is a famous educational philosopher who was probably the first person to kind of like take nursing education and bring it into school, like K-12 education. But one of her big things was just she wouldn't have called it a hidden curriculum quite yet because that term hadn't come about, but this idea that you're teaching things outside of your content, right? When you teach, you're modeling behaviors. And one of the big things that she focused on is like, how do teachers model care when they teach? And so part of that means like, if you aren't respecting students and their agency, they are learning to not care about themselves and others. But if you are caring about a student, they're learning how to care
Wow.
from you. And so it's this really interesting idea when you apply it to technology, because I think a lot of times technology is sort of positioned as this thing that's like removing the human right? It's like, if only we could be more machine. And what Pedagogy of Care has done for me as an instructor has really made me focus on like the humanness that's within the machine stuff. So that's why when we went remote, I was less focused on like, we need to know how to do audio and visual things well, because that will make everything clearer and crisper over the internet. I was like, oh, people need to connect to each other. We need to make this as simple and clear as possible. And so it's just a different like frame of what that technology is doing. So I'm usually not I'm not as focused on like the biggest and shiniest new thing that's come out. I'm really interested in the way that technology can build and support connection. You know, empathy is such a buzzword, but I am really interested in ways that, you know, assistive technologies have opened up different portals for folks from across a range of experiences and different things like that, which is one of the reasons like captioning is really important, or like how to make sure your PowerPoint reads well from a screen reader, that kind of thing, which mine didn't for the longest time. We'll be doing a workshop on that. But yeah, so I think that's, for me, it's really about how do I make sure I'm communicating care even when I'm teaching digital tools. And in some ways, I think you have to make a much more intentional effort, right? If you're teaching poetry, the humanness is like very clear right on the surface. And I think with technology, it's kind of hiding down in there. And, you know, a big thing I will sort of, you know, pitch to students a lot is like, you know, think about like why we initially made technology. What was its purpose? Was it always to be a tech entrepreneurial person? I mean, the wheel is like the example I'll use a lot famously in class, where it's like, we think about having invented wheels as like a thing to cart all of our stuff when we were like nomads, right? And it's like, nomads didn't have a ton of stuff. We made wheels most likely to cart people who were injured, right? And I think that's the thing that I'm always really interested in, is like, what was that original intention of the tool? What and like where is that human connection? What does it mean for sustaining human relationships? And I know that seems kind of deep and philosophical for someone who's like, how do you make a podcast 101? But it does inform how I even present those materials, right? It's not like I'm presenting you as someone who's going to be a big podcaster and make tons of money. It's like, you have this thing that you care about and you want to connect with other people who care about it. Let's talk about how we can do that together. So,
But I mean, I think what you do, I mean, all credits, what you do sort of is deep and philosophical anyway. You know what I
oh,
mean?
thanks.
I mean, seriously, like media and art and communication are like, what would you, you couldn't even talk to people without those things. You'd be a
Right.
rock. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
I
like,
get pushback a lot when I talk about like, what is media art, and I'm like, well, it's art that's, you know, shared. And I think the communication aspect of media art or media technology has to be at the center of it. It's about connecting with others, and about sharing information with other people. And sometimes that might just be yourself, you know. I don't want to, if someone
true.
needs to make a little video art piece for themselves and it stays on their computer and no one sees it, that's fine, because you're communicating something to yourself, right? That you need. So
That's almost even more deep than, you
yeah,
know, trying to put it out, as if you just do it for you. And it's not like I need to get views. It's like, I need to just do this thing because I need to do this thing.
right.
That's like a whole other level of
Yeah,
some word. That's
yeah.
some good word. I like what you said about the wheel though. Like it reminds me of this like it's funny. It's like a quote that's some famous anthropologist asks their class, like, what was the earliest sign of like civilization? And everyone's like, fire, like blah blah blah, like stonework. And the anthropologist is like, no, it's like a mended bone, because somebody took time out of their day to like help their fellow human to like not die. But then I read another thing about the quote. The quote is like false or something. It's like not a real quote. But but to your point about the wheel, like
Right.
that's really interesting, because I think it's so telling that it's like, yeah, the wheels like to take our stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we had a bunch of like stuff, and it's like I think they had like shelter and some tools. They
Right.
didn't
And
have
usually Yeah, but
So
like
it's like
the biggest, heaviest thing we would have been transporting was somebody else, and we have evidence that we didn't leave people alone, right? We cared for people well into their old age. So I like to remember that when I'm thinking about all these cool innovative technologies, is like, how am I making sure that I'm teaching people to still care about each other as we learn those things?
when you're thinking about Bitcoin, you're like, okay, but like, how do we like help people?
And non-fungible tokens and all of that garbage. It's fine. It's
I mean,
so fine.
how many Doge coins equal compassion? I don't know.
This,
Probably.
that is the question of this 21st century, and I'm mad about it.
That's terrible, isn't it? Oh man. Well, okay. I think we could probably go on for a while, but I think we should let's put a pin in it here. This was very fun. I had a great time talking with you. I'm really grateful you came on the show and shared your time and your expertise and your compassion and your knowledge and your
Well, thank you.
most importantly your knowledge of Raspberry Pi, which I will now be. I'll be at the library at some point soon to look at the Raspberry Pi.
Awesome.
And I encourage everyone to do that as well. Be safe. And
Well, we only have like one or two of them, so like
come.
if Connor's got one of them, I guess someone else can have another slice of Raspberry Pi.
Make sure you arrive after me, please. I need some time with the Raspberry Pi. But yeah, is there anything else you just want to sprinkle on top? A little bit, philosophically.
I don't know about anything philosophical, but I will give a plug for the workshop's fall hours, which are going to be 10 to 10 Monday through Thursday, and then so like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
On Friday, will be open from 10 to 5. Saturdays we're off this semester, but Sunday we'll be back from noon to 10. So please come and see us. We are open right now as well, as the summer is coming to an end. And yeah, we're happy, we're excited to help folks, and we are excited to see folks again. So please come and check it out. And all of our studios will be back online.
So you can make bad music, bad streams, good music, good streams. You can do all that stuff. And
yes.
I know that all the undergrad students, I don't know if you had Sundays from noon to 10 p.m., but that's a good time slot for getting work done. I think everybody knows about that. But yeah, thanks again for coming on, and
thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Connor, have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye now.
Bye.
And thanks for listening to part 2. This was a really fun interview, and I hope you enjoyed the end of the conversation. Find out more about what VCU Continuing and Professional Education is doing with digital badging at ocpe.vcu.edu/badges.